Some more interesting news from Xbox, and I feel like this is it could go either way for this. I honestly do think that Microsoft has to do something out of the ordinary if they want a shot at doing anything next gen. And what I mean by that is people aren't going to pay $1,000+ for new consoles that do less than what we have right now. And so I think it's sort of this rare situation where Microsoft and Sony are both going to be spinning their wheels a bit. Microsoft has a chance to pick up some people. I firmly believe that. I really do think that they could pick up some people. It's going to be interesting to see if that's something that they can kind of carry that momentum and actually do something. I don't foresee any platform surpassing 25 million units next gen, especially if both are $1,000+ at launch. I don't see either one going anywhere near that, and specifically Xbox. But I also think it's going to be Sony's worst generation ever, and that's why I think that we're going to see the the situation where gamers stick with what they have more so now than ever. So that's realistically, I think, where we're at as gamers. And listen, anything can happen. Microsoft could do and decide to do something that realistically changes the game and gets everybody on board. I don't know. Maybe they decide to take a loss on the hardware. That could be something that they do. And maybe they could just, who knows? But there could be different things that they decide to do, and that's going to be super interesting to see if they actually do plan that out. But I want to get started on this. What's up, everyone? I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. Helps out the channel. Hype the video. Watch it as long as possible. I certainly do appreciate that, because it keeps me motivated to do even more content as we go along, which, again, is an important thing to me. I really do enjoy doing this content and having fun and talking video games with you guys. So Asha Sharma speaking up about next generation, saying efficiency and affordability are top of mind for Project Helix. So she isn't necessarily talking about disk drives yet, but there's rumors that they could do a add-on, something along those lines. So anyway, as part of the Gamescom festivities taking place in Germany, Xbox boss Asha Sharma is, of course, talking about Xbox and like the future of Xbox and stuff like that, and how the company will navigate the challenges of the ongoing component crisis. Sharma talks a lot here about how the company needs to think about efficiency and affordability throughout the next generation, and that they need to find ways to give people more choice in how they buy and use their consoles. Here's some excerpts of what she said. Quote, "All of the industry needs to start to innovate on affordability and efficiency. That is something we have to not had to do previously. But with the crisis that's currently happening in hardware components, it is absolutely something all of us need to be thinking about and innovating on, and giving people more choice in terms of how they play their console and how they purchase their console." Sharma also went on to say that the next generation requires hardware efficiency in terms of how you use your storage and memory, the kind of price per unit, the components, things like that. The interview is partly in line with the announcement of the disc to digital feature that will allow Xbox players to convert thousands of digital physical games into digital versions, which Sharma advises is a key choice for people to have. A follow-up question related to whether Xbox Helix will incorporate a disk drive, but they couldn't get an answer from the Xbox boss either way. From the perspective at this, they reckon the disk-to-digital program is preparing for an all-digital future, although hopefully Helix might allow for an external drive at least. Quote, "She would not reveal whether Xbox next-generation console, currently codenamed Project Helix, will have a disk drive at all. So I do hope that they can continue to kind of go out there and, keep it with as many options as they possibly can. Like, I think that's going to be a very key point in the future. You know, you got to be able to kind of keep these things in a way that you can be affordable. And she mentions different ways or whatever. And I hope that they plan to do something more than just the, buy 10 years of Game Pass and get the Xbox thrown in for free or whatever it is. Like that. It's basically the same way that a credit card works. You got to have better options in that, because I just think that, unlike phones, which everybody carries with them everywhere, it's a lifeline. Consoles realistically aren't that. Consoles are, just kind of more of a luxury item. And, I do think that is something that, everybody has to kind of keep in mind, including these companies, is that, hey, these things are very much luxury items, and people aren't going to pay, $1,000, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 for them. That's just realistically not going to happen. You of course, when I say not going to happen, yeah, you're going to have some people that are going to go out there and do that. They're going to, have the kind of their way with that. They're going to really go out there and say, hey, yeah, I'm going to get it. And that usually does happen. I think to the first tune of the first, 7 to 10 million or so, we'll go out and do that. Because if I remember right, the PlayStation 5 was quite expensive at a particular point. Even my older brother bought one, I think off eBay or something, when it was like $900,000 or something like that. So you do have that. There's that certain group of people that will buy it when it gets to that point. But I still think that overall, the majority aren't even going to mess with it. And if you look at things, right, there was a recent survey. A good number of people are still in the PS4, and a good number of people are still in the Xbox One. Apparently more people are on the Xbox One than Series X and S. And the reason being is because these people play stuff like Fortnite, and they play stuff like, Apex Legends, and they play stuff like, the Madden games or whatever, Roblox, and all these games are still, Minecraft, these games are still updated regularly on PS4 and Xbox One, so people didn't upgrade. And, I think we would have seen our first big instance of, people kind of, upgrading with like the new GTA. But then I also think that obviously we also live in a world where console hardware has gotten so expensive. Like, people realistically would have had to have bought into the generation years and years ago. It would have been nice to kind of see that. So I do think that it's going to be fun to see what happens and how this works out. But again, anything, like I've mentioned this numerous times, anything can happen in the future. Realistically, it's going to come down to how these companies go after the fans by giving them more. If you're going to charge more, like, listen, if we can go back to the PS3 era, right? $599 US. And a fortune for back then, but you at least kind of got what you paid for, in my opinion. Like, there was so many different things, and to be fair, there were probably things on there. That thing was over-engineered with things that nobody really needed, that anybody really need, for disc slots or whatever. To me, it was very much over-engineered, but it was like those big bulky things. They were backwards compatible, and you could play PS1 and PS2 games, and some of them were hardware compatible, backwards compatible, so they had PS2 built in. And like I said, overall, I feel like what they were offering at the time, even though was kind of worth it, but nobody else really thought that way. Like, that thing was really struggling to sell consoles. I mean, Sony had to go out there and lower the price multiple times, and do that kind of stuff to make sure that people would kind of stay interested in it, so much so that they ended up losing somewhere between $4 and $6 billion on the entire generation. And people will still bring up, well, they still ended up, according to an unofficial thing, saying that it sold like 2 million more than the 360, which doesn't really make sense. Sony never said that, and there was no official announcement. But even outside of that, Xbox 360 won the last 34 NPDs in a row in North America. So you're telling me PlayStation 3 caught up but despite losing 3 straight years in North America NPD, like I don't really see that happening. But other people are going to kind of think of one way or the other. I think they both probably sold pretty much close to each other, in between 85 and 88 million. So it's good to kind of put that number out there. But again, times have changed, and so we'll see if they can grab a big foothold again. I personally don't believe it. I think we're going to see probably the worst selling Xbox and the worst selling PlayStation next gen. Does that mean console gaming is dead or gaming is dead? I don't think so, but it could definitely be on life support depending on how they come out of this. So we'll see. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.